How's it going, everyone? Dylan here from All You Can Board, and today we have a Marvel Champions video. It's been a little bit since I did the most recent one, and I thought it was going to be a while more because last we heard there was going to be some delays in content, but it looks like we might actually be getting Mad Titan Shadow relatively around the same time as was expected. I'm at this point, I'm just going to believe when I see it. I'm waiting for the call that my copy is in. We'll see when that happens. So what I wanted to do is we have had a full leak of all the cards completely unveiled for this expansion, but normally that's not something I would cover in depth, and I'm still not going to cover it in depth because we do preview content here, we do review content, and the fact of the matter is we're so close to the release of Mad Titan Shadow, and I'm going to be breaking down every single card after I've played with them and giving you my thoughts and reviewing them, that to go through them all right now as a preview and then go through them all again as a review just didn't seem prudent or necessary. So what I thought I would do instead is I'm going to go through the 10 cards that I'm most excited about, having looked through everything in the box now. This isn't to say these are the top 10 cards, and they're also not going to be in any order. I've just picked 10 cards that I'm excited to play with or excited to try out based on what I've read. Some of them could have been revealed in the preview article before, some of them might be revealed in this leak. If you do not want to be spoiled whatsoever with anything that has not been officially unveiled, I will not be offended if you skip this video. Totally get it. We don't do a lot of these videos on the channel very often. I've put a spoiler tag on it. Hopefully, you don't accidentally get spoiled. I'm letting you know right here. This is the spoiler warning. So I'm going to just go through 10 cards. I'm only going to go through player cards. There are obviously a lot of villain cards and the modular sets that are included here. I figured I would just keep this as the player cards from the two new heroes for now. At some point, if it turns out this is going to be delayed or I'm going to have a bigger gap before it comes out, maybe I'll do one covering the villains and the modular sets and some of my cards I'm most excited for. Otherwise, you'll see my thoughts when the actual review comes out. The other thing I just wanted to let you know, and you'll only know this if you watch this video, so you'll have some knowledge that maybe other people won't, is that depending when this pack gets released, I've heard August 27th. If that sticks, if that is the day that it actually arrives here, I am actually going to be on vacation when that happens. So this might be one of the first times where, you don't see a video come out right away for, a new release. Normally we'll get the release on Friday, and I tend to start putting up content on the Sunday. If there's multiple heroes, we get like a Sunday and a Tuesday or something like that. I'm going to be gone that entire weekend, probably not coming back until Monday or Tuesday. So if that is when it drops, if I don't get it the week before, if it doesn't come out the week after that, you'll probably see a delay in the content from us. We will still have our review of both heroes as well as the expansion as a whole, like we did for Galaxy's Most Wanted. It'll just come out a little bit later in that week. So look out for it, but we won't be first out the gate there this time around. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the 10 cards from the leaked cards that were unveiled for Mad Titan Shadow that I am most excited to play with. All right, let's kick things off with a Spectrum card. Now this is Gamma Blast. So Gamma Blast is a 3-cost event that says hero action, attack, change to Gamma energy form, and deal 7 damage to an enemy. If you are already in Gamma energy form, this attack gains overkill. So if you've watched my videos before, you know that aggression is one of my favorite, aspects to play. It's not the favorite, but just I've always been drawn to like the big attack cards that come with a lot of heroes, and generally the ones that are aggression-based or have, some sort of attack-based theme tied to them. They have these huge attack cards, and it just feels very satisfying for me, especially when I'm playing solo or if I'm playing, 2-player and I'm sort of the damage dealer. I find those cards to be very satisfying in terms of the way I like to play Marvel Champions. This one's very cool because Spectrum is obviously a very unique hero. She has the different energy forms, and you're going to be changing into them, depending when you flip to Spectrum's hero form, as well as a lot of her cards involve flipping to different forms. You're going to be jumping around, and each one has a different specialty. One is more focused on attack, one is more focused on thwarting, another one is your defense and healing one. So this is a card that allows you to flip to Gamma energy form. You could have started in one of her other forms, potentially been doing some thwarting, and then you flip and do this massive Gamma Blast attack. I love the idea that you can be doing something else with Spectrum and then flip to this form and do this huge attack. I also like the aspect that if you're already in Gamma form and you really need overkill based on what the state of the board is, that you have that option as well. It's a flexible attack card. It's 3 costs. It's general, like for an attack of this amount, that's generally where it would slot in. But the flexibility of which form you're in, it just adds a lot to it. I personally really like Gamma Blast. There's, I think, 3 copies of it in the deck, so you're going to see it come up frequently. Again, it speaks to my play style. I'm already excited for Spectrum, and Adam Warlock. They both look like amazing heroes, but this card specifically is going to be catering to the attack enjoyment that I get out of playing these heroes. So very excited for Gamma Blast. Let's move on to the next card. All right, next up we have a brand new ally, and you know how I like my allies. I think they're one of the most exciting things to see introduced into the game, and we have a really exciting one for leadership, and that is Captain America Steve Rogers. So very cool, 6 cost ally. Seems very steep, and it is, but we'll get to why that's okay in a bit. 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 consequential damage on each, 4 health, comes with toughness, which is very, very good. Reduce the cost to play Captain America by 1 for each Avenger character you control. So therein lies the rub. Obviously, you're going to play this with a hero that is an Avenger, which means that the cost is automatically going to be 5. But the idea here is, in a best case scenario, you have your allies maxed out for at least what the general max for allies is, which is 3, and they're all Avengers. This is now costs 2. 2 costs for this ally with toughness and 4 health, and everything is phenomenal. Obviously, that's going to be a little situational. It's going to depend when you draw Captain America. If it's at the beginning of the game and you haven't built up your board yet, this is just going to be a resource. You're likely not going to be playing Captain America. However, if you're able to draw him when you already have your board set up, again, if you're wanting to play him and you have a full board of 3 allies, your allies are full, there's no spot for Captain America. However, there are ways to increase your ally limit beyond 3. So again, a lot of it's situational. The most ideal, I guess, maybe would be 2 allies and Avenger. This costs 3. At that point, still very good, especially with toughness. So I just think it's very, very neat that we're getting a Captain America ally into the game. I think that's what excites me the most, is just the theme. But even beyond that, I think for leadership, this is going to slot in really, really nicely into some Avenger-themed leadership decks, and it's going to open up some opportunity to change some decks we've already seen and just like craft some new ideas based on the fact that we have this like exciting new hero introduced, and also great artwork too. I love the artwork on this. They've done Captain America justice, I think. So I am very excited about this new ally. Let's jump into the next card. Next up, we have another ally for leadership that I'm excited about. I believe I actually covered this in the preview for Mad Titan Shadow, but I'm still really excited about this ally. That is White Tiger, 3 cost, 2 health, 2 thwart, 2 attack. Response: after you play White Tiger from your hand, to draw X cards to a maximum of 3, where X is equal to the villain's stage number. If the villain has no stage number, draw 1 card. So minimum, you're always going to be drawing 1 card with White Tiger. For 3 cost, 2 health ally that has 2 thwart, 2 attack, and you draw a card, I would argue that's actually pretty good already. 3 is obviously a steeper cost than a lot of the 2 cost allies that exist if you're looking for just a chump blocker, but you're also getting a card draw out of it. However, you can always imagine that at some point in the game, you're at least going to have a second stage to the villain. If you're playing with stage 1 and 2, that's going to happen. If you're playing up to stage 3, either way, drawing 2 or 3 cards with this I think is phenomenal. Extra card draw. As soon as you're drawing 3, you're essentially almost having your entire cost of White Tiger returned. It costs 3 resources. I mean, it itself is a card in your hand, but you're gaining those 3 resources back with the 3 cards that you're drawing, and potentially, queuing yourself up for some other plays rather than just giving yourself resources as well. So I think there's a ton of potential in this card. I think that if you're playing a leadership deck that is going to be taking on a villain that has a difficult stage 3 or just has a stage 3 in general, this is a card you slot in. You know you're going to be drawing at least 2, if not 3 cards every single time. So I love this card. I love the idea of attaching card draw to an ally like this. I don't think the 3 cost is too steep, especially when you're drawing the cards back into your hand and you're getting yourself a blocker that can do 2 attack or 2 thwart. I love it. I think White Tiger is going to be great, and it has me excited to try her out in a few different leadership decks. So I'm not quite as excited for this as Captain America from just the thematics. I think Captain America is a more exciting ally for me. However, I actually think White Tiger's ability and powers are probably stronger than the Captain America leadership card, but that remains to be seen. I haven't played with them. This is me just guessing. So very excited for White Tiger, and I cannot wait to try her out. All right, you're probably gonna be noticing a theme here. I try to keep this even across, a variety of different card types, but I am a sucker for allies. I love them. They're the first thing I think when I'm slotting into a deck. Again, sometimes I'm playing Marvel Champions not to craft the absolute best deck I can, but just one that I find very fun and interesting based on the cards that are in there. And we have a really cool and exciting new basic ally, and I think basic allies are pretty exciting when they're introduced because, again, they can slot into any deck. So first of all, it's Blade, and that is awesome that we're getting a Blade card. I hope we get a Blade hero one day. And it's a pretty sweet card. So this is a 1 cost ally that has 3 health, 1 thwart, 2 attack, and both the thwart and the attack do not have consequential damage either. So you got to think this is obviously too good to be true, and it is. There is a forced response. The forced response is after Blade thwarts or attacks, Choose to either spend a fist resource from your hand or discard Blade. Now, I think this is phenomenal. If you're putting Blade in your deck, you're likely putting him in because you have built a deck that has a lot of these, strength resources. If you do, with no consequential damage, there is a good chance that Blade is going to be able to remain in play for a long time. Again, it's going to be based on your hand, it's going to be based on how you want to play it, but like there's no consequential damage here. So even you discarding the resource, it's not like Blade is like taking damage over time from that and is eventually going to like phase himself out. He can stay in as long as you have the resources in your hand to keep paying for him. If you don't, he obviously is discarded immediately, but there's a potential to get a bunch of attack out of this. And not only that, but it is also just a one-cost ally that could be a chump blocker. I think this is phenomenal. Again, it's one of those things where I haven't played with this card. You don't know until you do sometimes how things are going to shake out based on what you're seeing. It also is an Avenger ally at the same time. It'll slot in leadership decks that way. But I am just super pumped about Blade. This might be the ally I'm most excited about that's been revealed. The fact that it's basic is just the cherry on top. Why did I do that? I thought, I was like, yeah, this is what people do. No, that was stupid. Forgive me for that attempt at a kiss gesture. Anyways, Blade is very exciting. I cannot wait to try him out. I'm like I said, I'm not even the biggest Blade fan in terms of the comics. Not like I'm not a Blade fan, but just I don't follow that character that often. I just think it's a very cool one that's being introduced into the game, and they couldn't have picked a better set of stats and abilities to get me excited for them. So that is Blade, and I cannot wait to see how he slots into a bunch of my decks. All right, next up, we're moving on to the Adam Warlock cards, and this is Soul World. Now, I did cover this in my preview, but I want to talk about it just a little bit more because I'm still just as excited for this. I love when Marvel Champions puts cards into the games or heroes that completely do new things. I just like the idea of looking at your deck building a little bit differently and just expanding the space of what this game can do. That's something they constantly are doing. Soul World, I think, is a really interesting card. So it's a one-cost support, really cheap to get out. Response: after your deck runs out of cards, you place a soul counter here. Without a soul counter, Soul World is useless. So you're putting this out with the hope that it will eventually have a use when your deck runs out, which is what makes it unique. The alter ego action is exhaust Soul World and remove the one soul counter. Heal all damage from your identity. A full heal. I think this is super cool. I don't think we've seen a full heal support card. I could be wrong. Again, there's so many cards in the game it's easy to forget. But the fact that you have to have ran out of cards in your deck first, and then you get rewarded by putting this soul counter on there and getting this full heal whenever you need it. At that stage of the game, when your deck has run out, you're probably deep into the game, and you could probably use a full heal at some point coming up very soon. It'll allow you to take some more risks. It'll allow you to get really low and then just use the soul counter. It doesn't destroy Soul World. It only exhausts it, which means if you run out of cards again, you can put another soul counter on this. I just think it's a cool design. I can't even say for sure if this is going to be a card that you use very frequently because it will depend the villain you're playing against and how Adam Warlock plays and how quickly you're going through your deck. But I just think in general the design is really cool, and I think the idea of having this full heal at your disposal as sort of a reward for making it through your deck when normally that's just usually a detriment because you get the penalty. I just think it's really neat. So I cannot wait to try this out, and I'm really hoping it turns out to be a very cool card, or a card that's not just cool but also functions very well as well. So really pumped about this. I hope they keep doing more cards that shake up the design space and add some new things we haven't seen, whereas this one just rewards you from going through your deck, which is something we haven't really seen outside of heroes that constantly go through your deck, like Scarlet Witch, for instance. So very cool card. Cannot wait to try it out. Next up, we have In-Betweener. Now, there is one of these type of cards in Adam Warlock for every single aspect, I believe, that it has this new mechanic we're about to talk about. This one is my personal favorite. I'll tell you why. 2 cost, action, shuffle this card into the encounter deck without looking. So basically, when this card is played, it's not going to do anything except take a spot in the encounter deck, and it's going to be revealed later. When revealed, deal 2 damage to the villain and remove this card from the game. This effect cannot be cancelled. Now, all of these cards, the effect when it's revealed isn't anything earth-shattering. There's nothing, it's either 2 damage. I think the Justice one might be remove 2 threat or remove a threat or something like that. Like, they're all relatively, when you think about it as I paid two costs to do 2 damage, you know, it's like that's not very exciting. But you have to remember that it's taking a spot of an encounter card. So not only is it doing this effect, it's also ignoring what would have otherwise been an encounter card for a fully positive card for you now, which is a huge deal because skipping an encounter card, especially, you know, against certain villains like Ronin, for instance, is phenomenal. The reason I like this one is sometimes the biggest problem aggression can have is that they want to do a whole bunch of damage. And you might have cards to do this huge one-hit attack, which comes up sometimes, and you find yourself with the villain having a tough status card. Now, I know this is situational and this has to come up at the right time, but the potential for this to come up, do 2 damage, remove a tough status card for you that you would have otherwise had to have a way to deal with, maybe have been added on that turn, and then you get your turn back. You didn't have to deal with an encounter card, and you can do that huge attack, I think is a big deal. I personally think that the chance for that to happen is a bigger deal than just removing a couple threat from a scheme, for instance. But again, all of them are good. They all have their own use. They all ignore an encounter card. I am also just a fan of the aggression aspect, so this is the one I gravitate towards. I'm just super pumped that we have this new mechanic of adding cards into the encounter deck, especially with Adam Warlock having one of these across all the aspects. So you're going to be skipping encounter cards all the time, which might make him a great candidate to take on Ronin, for instance, where you're constantly drawing encounter cards and not have to worry about them as much. So really, really cool design. I love In-Betweener. I'm excited to play all of them, these cards across all the aspects, but this one specifically, I can't wait to try it. All right, next up we have Magic Attack. So this is another instance where we have one of these cards across all the aspects for Adam Warlock, where you have to have the Mystic Identity, and you have max 1 per deck, and I think they all have to do with discarding cards from the top of your library, which again, if you're discarding cards across the top of your library from all these cards, you're going to cycle through your deck more, which is going to help you with Soul World that we just went through. So there is some synergy here. Anyways, Magic Attack is a 1-cost event. Again, you can only play it if your identity has the Mystic trait. This is very much meant for Adam Warlock. Choose an enemy and discard up to 5 cards from the top of your deck. Deal 1 damage to that enemy for each card discarded this way. So I just think this is super powerful. Aggression is already obviously where you want to be dealing a lot of damage, but the potential to, for 1 cost, deal 5 damage is a huge deal. You are losing 5 cards from the top of your library, but again, with Adam Warlock, there are reasons that you want to be cycling through cards, especially if Soul World is in play and you find yourself running low in health and you might be needing that full heal sometime soon. You might be trying to cycle through cards a little quicker by using cards like this that are still very powerful, but are also getting you to that point where you're able to do a full heal with Soul World to get back into the game after you have a refreshed deck. So I just think 5 potential damage, and again, you have the flexibility. You can do 1 damage if you just need to ping off a tough status card. You can do 5 if you need to take out a huge minion or do a big chunk of damage to the villain. Love the flexibility on it, love the cheap cost, and I love the idea that it cycles through your deck a little bit quicker for a hero like Adam Warlock. I'm excited for it. It could turn out that discarding this many cards from the top of your deck across all of these cards that he has in his deck is just not as good as we think it is, or at least that I'm hoping it is. But either way, I'm excited to try it out, and it fits the mold of what I like to do in Marvel Champions. So very pumped for this card. All right, next we're going to talk about Audacity. Now, this is a resource card. It's nothing crazy flashy, but I just think it's really powerful specifically for aggression. I think there's one of these for every single aspect, these resource cards that do something else. Again, I'm picking the aggression one like I have for the last few, but I just think this one is really, really good. So that is because it's a resource card that generates a wild resource. After you spend this card, deal 1 damage to the villain. Now, you might think that's 1 damage, why do I care? It's because, again, like I mentioned with In-Betweener, a lot of the trouble you can run into when you're playing aggression cards is you want to do a big attack and you find that the villain has a tough status card. And you have to figure out, how do I get rid of the tough status card before I do my big attack so that I don't waste the big attack? Audacity essentially eliminates that problem for you without having to do anything else. You're paying a resource to put something out, and you're dealing with a tough status card, and you're getting your full effect of whatever you're trying to pay for. That 1 damage can ping off a tough status card, and then it pays for itself with what the big attack you're doing afterwards. So I think it's very, very good. Sometimes you're just gonna, use it as a resource and you're not gonna have a need for where that 1 damage gets distributed to the villain. Like, it's literally just gonna be, we've added a damage to whatever attack you're doing. Yes, that's less exciting. I just think the potential for this to remove tough status cards is so good that when it works out, you're gonna be like, oh, thank God I had Audacity in this deck. But either way, I honestly could have picked a lot of the resource cards across any of the aspects that are being introduced in Adam Warlock, because I think they are all very cool in the things that they're offering. I just personally think that this one is the most exciting for me. But again, your playstyle and which aspects you prefer might dictate which one you're most excited for. All right, the ninth card we're going to look at, and the final ally, I promise the final ally, we've looked at so many. It's also a leadership ally. This is Major Victory, 2 cost, 2 health, 1 thwart, 1 attack, consequential damage on each, and the interrupt is when Major Victory is defeated, choose a friendly guardian character, ready that character. So what I find very interesting about this card, one of the reasons I'm excited to play around with it, is that generally whenever we see cheap allies introduced into the game, a lot of their function, a lot of what, the reasons you're including them have to do with the fact that for a very low cost, you're going to get this great blocker that can negate an attack from the villain for a very cheap cost. Major Victory can still be that the flexibility is there to just sort of, utilize Major Victory that way if the situation calls for it. But generally what you would hope would happen is that Major Victory would be defeated on your turn, and then that way you're readying one of your Guardian characters on your turn and utilizing them again, especially a very powerful Guardian ally, or if you have a hero that can do a lot by getting another turn with one of its base abilities. So I think it's very cool that we're getting a cheap ally that we're incentivized not to be a chump blocker. I just think that, to me, utilizing allies for their actual abilities is always more interesting design-wise than a chump blocker. Chump blockers are obviously powerful and are just a part of the game, but it's not always the most interesting way to use an ally for someone like me that just loves allies. So the fact that Major Victory, we're incentivized to have him die on our turn is interesting because there are cards out there that involve sacrificing allies on your turn as well, that will allow for other ways to utilize Major Victory rather than just doing 2 thwart, 2 attack, and then having him ready a Guardian, which is another option of how to use him though. So I just like the opportunities this encourages, and the fact that it's not just here's a cheap ally, use him to block something, and that's his main function. That's what I'm most excited about. I'm just looking forward to trying out Major Victory in different ways and seeing how I can best utilize them in some Guardian archetypes and readying some Guardian characters to give them extra turns on the current turn and maybe have a big rush of attacks or thwarts come out. So very cool card. I like what they've done with it. Can't wait to try it out. And the last card we're going to look at is the leadership counterpart to Magic Attack. This is Summoning Spell. So Summoning Spell is a very, very cool card. I'm very excited about this one. So this is a 2-cost event. Again, play only if your identity has the Mystic trait, max 1 per deck. Hero action, discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard an ally, but then put that ally into play under your control. The potential here is obviously huge. You can build, you can put a bunch of allies into the Adam Warlock deck that are very high cost, with the hope that Summoning Spell is going to go through a bunch of cards in your deck, hopefully not too many, and you're going to discard one of these gigantic allies and be able to essentially play it for free. I mean, you paid for Summoning Spell, but in a best case scenario, it's like the next card you flip over. But even if you're cycling through a bunch of cards, again, we've seen that Adam Warlock has some desire to cycle through cards anyways, like with Soul World. So shouldn't be the end of the world. And if you're cycling through it a lot, you're going to be shuffling it and then getting those cards back anyways. I just think the potential to have those amazing plays where suddenly, whether it's the 6-cost Captain America or any of the other expensive allies are just coming out in a time when you're not expecting them to come out and you're not having to pay anything else for them, has the potential to really swing games and just be one of those moments that, remember when we did that play and you got cheated that card out and everything. Like, I just love those moments in card games, especially Marvel Champions. I think Summoning Spell is going to open up the door to these really special moments in your game. Yes, sometimes it's going to be a dud, or sometimes you're going to be cycling through like 15 cards or something and then a really unlucky scenario and be like, oh my god, I'm discarding my whole deck and I just landed on Squirrel Girl or something. But again, why are you putting Squirrel Girl in this deck then? So I think you'll build around it a little bit, and if you're planning to use Summoning Spell really, really effectively, it is only one of, so you can't like build an entire deck around waiting for one card to come out. However, I think there's going to be some interesting design choices and deck building opportunities to take advantage of it, and I'm just really excited to try it out for myself. Okay, so there you have it. Those are the 10 cards that at first glance I am most excited to try from the new expansion Mad Titan Shadow. There are a ton of exciting cards in there though, don't get me wrong. And again, some of them, we don't realize how powerful they are or how exciting they truly are until you actually get to start playing with them. I have not played with these cards, and every single pack, every single expansion, I'm surprised by something. So I guarantee you there's going to be a card that did not make this list that just completely blows me away. And you know what, I'll talk about it in my review. I'll reference that and we can discuss why I overlooked it in the first place and then why it ended up turning out to be such a gem. So let me know if you have peeked at these spoilers, or if you're just if you've just looked at these cards, maybe let me know which cards you're excited to try and which ones, have got the glisten in your eye going. You just like cannot wait to try them out. And otherwise, I am so excited for Mad Titan Shadow. There's going to be so much cool stuff to check out there. Again, like I mentioned in the intro, if you didn't see it, there's a chance that depending when this gets released, I might be on vacation, Mad Titan Shadow that is. If so, we will see just a little bit of a delay in our content coming out, but not very long. I would just say a few days later than what you would normally expect. It would still come out that following week. So, and again, we'll have a video for Spectrum, we'll have a video for Adam Warlock, and we'll have a full review of the entire campaign box and what I think of it. So look forward to that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy our Marvel Champions content. If you do, consider subscribing to the channel. We also have a whole bunch of other content that is not Marvel Champions related about all kinds of board games, and I guarantee you that if you watch some of that, you will find some other games that you're interested in, because I love Marvel Champions, and look how many board games I have back here. There's a ton of stuff in here that I love just as much as Marvel Champions. So check out that content. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.